Chapter 9, we're looking at local government. So there are all kinds of different units of local government and what makes a local government. So first off, we have to look at establishing the local governments. And the local governments are established by the state governments. So the federal government establishes the state government, and the state governments establish the local government. So that's where they get their power from. They get their power from the states. And the state legislatures, they are the ones who set up the procedures of how do you set up a local government. So your local government could be things like your county government or your city government or village, whatever, small town, whatever it is. But these local governments receive charters from the state. So what's a charter? Well, a charter is a basic plan for the local government that defines its powers, so what it can and can't do, its responsibilities, and how it is organized. So that's what a charter does. It's just a basic plan for how it's set up. Well, why do we need local government? We have state government, we have federal government. Why on earth do we need a local government? Well, local government is able to provide services for its people. The states are worried about things like elections and laws and punishments and all that kind of stuff. So the local governments are the ones that actually set up the services like water and sewage, garbage removal, sidewalks, roads, cleanup committees, all that kind of stuff. That comes from your local government. So obviously the local government and the state governments need to cooperate together. The states give the local governments powers to make ordinances, and an ordinance is a regulation that governs the community. So basically it's a law. This may not, however, conflict with the state or the national laws. So it can't interfere or it can't countermand. It can't be in opposition to the state or national laws. So these local and state governments also cooperate by enforcing laws that are passed by the states. They help out with election laws. They help out with catching criminals. They help out with things like weights and measures, making sure that a pound in Remsen is going to be the same as a pound in Des Moines, of making sure things are equal. There are various different kinds of local governments. You can have city governments, you can have county governments, town governments, village governments. You just have to ask for that charter to get you set up. But their main job, like I said, is to provide services for their citizens. So we're going to look at these different types of local government. So we're going to start out with the biggest, and that's the county government. Their size and their number vary from state to state. Here in Iowa, we have 99 counties, but not every state has 99 counties. Some have more, some have less. But counties are the largest unit of a local government, and so they help to carry out the state laws. Each county has a county seat where they hold basically their meetings for the county, where the meetings take place. And county governments do things like collecting taxes, they hold elections, they help to enforce the laws, as well as providing services for the citizens, like being able to get your driver's license there or your marriage license there, all that kind of stuff. They store your birth certificates, property ownership, your deeds to your house, that kind of stuff, your voter registration, all those things are stored at the county seat. The county has certain officials that are in most counties elected by the people of that county, and that includes things like your sheriff, who is there to enforce the laws, a county clerk who keeps records of elections and births and deaths and marriages. And then you have the county treasurer, who takes care of the funding, like taxes and bills and all that kind of stuff. And then you have the district attorney, who is like your county prosecutor. They go after the criminals in your county and put them on trial. The next level is the town government. Well, not really the next level, but the next one we're going to talk about is the town government. When we look at the development of the town and the town government, we have to look back at the old colonies and the first states. And so we're going to look at the New England states. And so it began with the New England counties that were established. They would build their homes and churches, and they had farms on the edge where they worked. And so the early town governments were just where you had a group of people that were together, that were in close proximity to each other. And so the first town meetings, everybody came and they discussed the issues and they voted. which was great until your population began growing, and so you couldn't have everybody have their say and vote, because it just would become too disorganized, and you'd never get anything accomplished. So they went to representative town governments or town meetings, and so today you elect people to represent your opinion. So you do that with like a city council, or you do it with a commission, and that's just because you got too large of cities and towns to be able to handle doing everybody come in and vote and voice your opinion. So when we look at how those local governments really developed, we're looking at the city governments. There's different organizations for that. Now, some cities are granted home rule, and home rule is where you have the power to write and enforce your own charter. So the state really doesn't deal with you so much. A great example of this would be Kansas City. Now, Kansas City is on the border between Missouri and Kansas. And so do you have both states have a say in what happens in Kansas City, or neither state, or only one state? And so it just got to be too much of a hassle. So what they decided to do was grant Kansas City home rule, which means it writes its own charter. The states don't make that decision. Sioux City has kind of the same thing, because it's in 3 different states. They have home rule where they make up their own charter. However, things that they pass have to be approved by the voters. So it's not like they just get free reign. They don't get to just say whatever they want. It does have to be approved by the voters. So some cities have that. But then you have other cities that follow one of these forms of government. Well, actually, all the cities follow one of these 3 forms of government, even those with home rule. Home rule just means that they're not subject to one state. So we have 3 different forms of city government. The first is mayor-council. And in a mayor-council form of government, you have a city council, and that's your lawmaking body. They're like the legislature, and they're elected by the people. And then you have a mayor, and the mayor is like your president. He's the chief executive. He or she is the chief executive, and they're also elected by the people. And so typically, depending on how large your city is, you have wards or precincts, and these are divisions of the city that each one has a representative that sits on the city council. And then the mayor is going to appoint other officials as needed. Another form of city government is the commission form of government, and in this you have a government that is governed by 5 elected officials who are called the commission, and they make and enforce the laws, and each one heads up a different department, so they each have their own segment that they are taking particular attention to. And so they meet as a group to discuss any situations or laws that come up. Now, each one carries out the laws in their own department. So it's kind of like they act as their own executive department within this legislative body of the commission. So you have the ones that are passing the laws, which is the commission, but each commission member also is in charge of their own department. So it's kind of a weird layout, but in some cases it works really well. Now, the voters are going to choose one of these commission members to be mayor, and the only thing that does is just gives them the power to run the meetings. They don't really have any other power beyond that at all. The final form of city government that we're going to look at is the council manager form. Now, what happens in this is that the voters are going to elect a council that makes the laws. And the council will then appoint a manager as their chief executive, as their president. So the manager is not elected to their job. They are appointed by the council. The council is elected by the voters, but the council appoints the manager. And the manager is going to appoint different heads of departments, and they report back to the manager. Now, the council, their job is to determine if the manager is doing a good job or not. So if they think the manager is doing a really crappy job at whatever is going on, they fire the manager and get a new one. They don't have to wait for an election. They just do it whenever they need to. So if they don't like what the manager is doing, they get rid of the manager. And the manager is always able to, the manager's job is to basically run the city. And the council's job is to manage the manager and make sure that they're doing a good job. So also kind of complicated, but in some cities it works really well. In others it doesn't. So how do these governments all work together? You've got your federal or national government, you have your state government, and then you also have your local governments. And there's all kinds of different local governments. So how do you get them all to work together? Well, it is very much a division of power. Your constitutional or national law is the supreme law, and then it goes to state law, and then it goes to local law. So why do they work together? Well, basically, in order to have organization. If we didn't have them working together and they were all doing their separate little things, it would be so messy. We wouldn't know what laws to obey and which ones not to obey and which ones should we obey first and which ones are the most important. It would just be a mass chaos. And so the nice thing is that they all know their own powers, and so one state doesn't become too powerful, one local government doesn't become too powerful, because they know that these are what their powers are and this is what they can get. And so this helps to protect our citizens as well. Different ways in which all these governments cooperate together. Things like building roads. Sometimes the states don't have enough money, and so the local governments will help out. Education is another way that they help out. The national government helps out states with getting grants to build or to add technology or whatever. They all cooperate in law enforcement in order to help catch criminals, sharing information and posting watches, that kind of thing, that you got to watch out for this guy, he escaped from our facility, we think he's headed here, keep on the lookout, kind of thing. That's what they're doing. They also help out with business. They cooperate in business, that they believe businesses should obey common laws when it comes to safety standards for their workers, minimum wage, and that kind of stuff. So they try to keep it equal between all the states. Now, even though they are supposed to work together, and they do work together, there are some instances where the government competes with each other. And the most obvious is that they compete for tax money, for our hard-earned money. You have local taxes that you pay out of your paychecks, you have state taxes, you have federal taxes that come out. And not all of them come out of your paycheck. Sometimes they're paid in sales taxes. So you have sales taxes, some of it goes to the state and some of it goes to the local government and some of it goes to the federal government of your sales tax. So it's not just income that is taxed by all three. You have taxes that come out from other stuff as well. So that is our local government.